Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alpstead, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Greetings, Hawks fans. Welcome into another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I am Keith Myers. Bill is out once again. And so this time I've got a special guest coming in from Our Turf Football, Seahawks fan and writer, director. She does a million things over there. Special guest, Dayna O'Gorman. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's been too long since we've gotten to sit down and chat. It'll be fun.
I know we haven't done this since the summer. It's we got to do this more often because I love having you on the show. I love being on your show. It's just you always have so much insight and it's just such a fun perspective. Just because it's different than me and Bill, and we kind of know each other too well at this point. So, your take real quick on Sunday's game. They season sweep of the 49ers again. Even with the Seahawks being bad and the 49ers being by record better, Seattle just kind of owns them. Like, what did you see from Sunday?
Well, I don't know if you've seen this fantastic meme that's running around Twitter, and it is three hands that are in rock, paper, scissors, and the Seahawks are the rock, the Niners are the scissors, and the Rams are the paper. And isn't that the truth? That is just
Absolutely.
how these teams play each other. They just have their number. Russell Wilson has been the kryptonite for the 49ers. The 49ers have always owned McVay, and McVay, we all know what he does to Seattle. So it's just fascinating. I love this division so much because of that constant churning between those teams. And no disrespect to Arizona, they just haven't – this is their first year where they've really kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, and so we'll see how they kind of fit in. But really, it was always the three teams, and I think that that's really fascinating. I fully went into Sunday expecting Seattle to lose. I figured that, San Francisco had been rolling a bit. They had been kind of feeling themselves. Jimmy still looked like Jimmy, but at least he was being somewhat consistent, which we hadn't seen for a while. And so I didn't have high expectations. And believe it or not, them playing at home made it almost worse because Seattle hasn't been fantastic at home, right? So that didn't give us any help there at all. And then seeing all that red in the stadium, which Niner fans travel well, we know that.
And when your team's 4-8, you get a lot of season ticket holders that are selling their tickets, getting because 49er fans were paying well, so. It was expected when I got there. It was disappointing, but still expected. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of red in the stands.
Right. And it's funny because I like to go to games when teams are bad because I think that then you can actually, it's not such an anxious, situation. You can kind of evaluate a little better, but that's a reporter brain, not a fan brain. So it makes it a little different. Once the score hit 17-7, I really kind of thought that was going to be it, that they were going to be done. Even with the fantastic play, I love trick plays. I think that they're one of the things that make football so fun. So Travis Homer's, fake punt was fantastic. And that was the stuff that the fan base needed, that the fans in the stands needed that. Oh, yeah. And I thought that was a really good idea. I don't think he thought he was going to get a touchdown. I thought he thought he was just going to get a first down, but it worked out wonderfully. And then all of those 3 and outs, and they kind of cooled down like they have been. And so I'm like, oh, here we go. Now we're going to see this team. I had no idea when San Francisco got to 23 that Seattle would find a way to get that touchdown right at the end of the first half. And I was so excited about that because that had a little bit of sparkle to it. That had a little bit of last season, 5 seasons ago, Seahawks, where they're like, yeah, feel free to score. We're just going to come down and do it too. And we hadn't seen that this year. So that was very exciting. And then they just rolled in the second half. It was nice to see them Get the wide receivers a little more involved. I know everyone was really mad at Everett and very upset with him. I think that he has been a really pretty solid piece to this team. He just had a bad game. But I did still feel like Russ was pushing it to Metcalf a little bit, but we need to keep trying to do that. But it was great. It was fun. And it was nice that San Francisco, the Seahawks defense looked like the defenses of old. It was, and defense is my favorite part of football.
Yep.
So I was just so thrilled. They didn't get another point. They didn't get close to another until the last play of the game. They weren't really even close. So that was so fun for me. Did it change my perspective on the season? Not really, but man, it just felt good to be able to say we swept the Niners, even though we suck. Right? It was just good.
Yeah, it was fun. And I got to say Gerald Everett had an awful game. We all know it. And I get people are mad at him, but he's been good for most of the year. So I'm trying to give him a pass. But he really did result in a 21-point swing towards the Niners. He had two fumble, or the fumble, and then it goes down in the books as an interception, but it was really because he caught it and fumbled it straight up into the air and to someone. Both of those should have been touchdowns if he hadn't. And then the other one, his other fumble led the next play to a Jimmy Garoppolo touchdown. So if it's like a 21-point swing, which is why, like I was just, I was thinking about it. I'm like, it really felt in the second half like Seattle was dominating the game, and I'm like, why are they not pulling away? And I'm like, oh, that's probably kind of why they're pulling. Like, one, they had dug themselves a hole, so the dominating got them back, even, and then into a lead, and then they also had the other points that went away.
The score would have been very lopsided had he been able to hold on to those. And you know what? Again, I agree with you completely. He's been great this season, so I'm not too upset at him.
It's also a win. It would have been a lot harder if they lost because of that. It would be a lot harder. The win definitely makes it easier to swallow.
But wouldn't that be par for the course? Because that's what this season has been. Over the years, Seattle has always won their close games. You just like, oh, Russell Wilson's got 2 minutes. We're going to win this. Like, done, right? And they haven't been able to do that this year. So to not be able to overcome those hurdles, that would have been kind of par for the course. So to see them do it was really encouraging.
Yeah, the offense really looked good. Actually, and the thing is, the offense looked bad early, and then it looked better later. And one of the things that came about from that part of when the offense turned around was when Shell went out with his shoulder injury, and Stone Forsythe came in, and then the running game really got going when Fuller went out and Jake Curran came in at guard. So it's like, maybe these kids need to be playing more, because the offensive line got better and the offense started really working when the kids came in. So,
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. When Kyle Fuller has a 0.0 grade from PFF the week before, he doesn't need to see the field again. And nothing against him. You're a nice kid, but you know what? We're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's see what those young guys have. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And, Forsythe, he came in mid-game and drew Bosa. That's you're lining up opposite Bosa. He's one of the best. And I thought he played really well. I thought he held his own. You can't say he dominated, but nobody dominates Bosa. It's like trying to dominate, the Rams, line and all of that. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So I thought he did well. But so you're talking about we're not going to win the Super Bowl. We're 4-8. You had high expectations before the year.
I did.
So did I. Where did we go wrong? Where were you and I wrong?
Well, I think there's a couple facets to this, and I get a bad time for being too positive. But I think there is a lot of positive in this season. But where I think the glitches came up for Seattle this year, of course, number one was Russell's injury. We all know that we would not have 4 wins. We'd probably have 6 or 7 wins at this point had Russell not gone out. Those games were too close in order to, really have not dominated it. And I think he came back too early. I think it truly was a 6 to 8 week injury, and he probably should not have come back. as quick as he did. But, when you put out there this note from your doctor that says you're a miracle and you get to play, then you let him play, right? I think that's, what are you supposed to do with that? You can't really stop it. But I think that the biggest issue is probably the same issues we had last year. Well, one of the bigger issues. Defense took too long to get going. It was better this year. They snapped back from it a little bit further. I'm just not a fan of Ken Norton. I realize that he gets it going at the end of the season, but I also wonder then how much the players are involved in that. It's not really Ken Norton. It's the players fixing it themselves, or even maybe Pete, because we know Pete stepped in last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realize the players love him, but that doesn't always make him, a good coordinator. And so I think that's part of the problem. I think that the injuries to some of the other players, my biggest issue, Keith, is the disaster that is Shane Waldron. He is, to me, was a huge mistake. They took a gamble on a kid, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that they were looking for that youth movement. I understand it. He, in my opinion, seems to be floundering. He has absolutely no idea what he's doing. As the season has progressed, you can see the adjustments that he's making, but I just don't think that there's any experience there to be able to take these hits and fix them the next week. I don't see that from him. And so it was an experiment. As of right now, it's a failed experiment in my eyes.
See, that's interesting because I wouldn't. Bill asked me that like a week ago, and I said, I don't think we can evaluate him because the offense was, when Russ got hurt, the offense was number one in the league in yards per play and number one in the league in points per drive. The problem was just like in the Titans game, they had 3 possessions in the second half. That's it.
Right.
And in that same game, there was over an hour of real time between offense snaps for Seattle. And so I'm like, okay, there's that. Then he's got Geno, and Geno's, you're not running your offense. And so then I was like, I don't know if we can evaluate him. Russ has come back and the O-line's just been so bad. He can't even get to the top of his drop before he's getting hit. So I'm just like, is this Waldron or is it just there's a lot of other stuff? But I also get that I'm in the minority. Like most people are like, oh no, he's terrible. Get rid of him, move on. And I don't know. For me, I guess I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying they should keep him. I'm just saying I don't feel like I know what he is yet. And it's because of
but in the
context.
league, you can't give him time to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Not when you have your franchise quarterback at his prime, and you don't have the draft picks that you normally would have due to a couple of trades. He was brought in to be innovative. I don't see innovation out of him. Do you see it anywhere?
There's
Other than the Colts game. I liked the way they looked in the Colts game, and then it just disappeared.
This is the first time since the Colts game where the offense has really looked dynamic. And I don't mean that in terms of the athletes, because we know Wilson and Metcalf and Lockett are all dynamic, but this is the first time that the offense has looked dynamic in its design. And I guess I'm wanting to see. He's not going anywhere right now, so let's see what he looks like. And can we start playing the kids on the O-line, because Fuller needs to never see the field again.
Right.
I wouldn't be upset if we found out that he got cut and that Shipley's now going to be the backup center. I just wouldn't. He has proven multiple times he's just not a guy,
And why is Phil Haynes not playing? I mean, they keep putting Fuller in there, but then you pull Phil Haynes in. There's so many options, and they keep going back to some of these not great players. I don't want to call them bad. They're professionals. They're not bad. They got to where they are because they could play the game. But there's other options.
Yeah.
So is that Solari? Is that, I don't know who it is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Play the kids.
At some point, you got to play the kids. And I know that over the last few years, going back to Marquise Blair's rookie year, for some reason, starting that year, they just don't want to play younger players. They want to play vets. And I'm like, sometimes you just got to play the kids and you got to let them take their lumps. And I don't know. I think that's it. We can go on like this. There's it's weird because when Pete came to Seattle, he was totally on the always compete. If you're the best player, you're going to play. And he played a lot of the young players, and Earl Thomas made a ton of mistakes his first year and a half until he figured it out, and then he became amazing. But you know what? They kind of just they took those lumps. And then the other thing is he was also super aggressive in the way that he called games. They ran for it on fourth down. They, did all sorts of weird stuff. And the longer he's been here, the more opposite of that he's been. Now he only plays vets and won't play any of the younger players. And he's so conservative about everything. And it's weird. It's just weird. It's like he's a different coach.
Yeah. My take on that, it's not probably a very popular take, but I am not a Pete stan. I'm not a Russell Wilson stan, right? Like I get that people are picking one over the other. That's not me. I think Pete is a Hall of Fame coach and he's done amazing things for Seattle. Russell's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's done amazing things for Seattle. That's just the truth of it, right? But I think that what has happened is Russell Wilson has gotten over the last offseason, he got some power. And I think that he wants things certain ways. It is not in Pete's nature to do the ways Russell wants them done. And so I think there's a little strife there. I think there's a little back and forth there. I'm not saying they don't get along. I'm not saying that they're fighting. None of that. They have a professional relationship and it's fine. But I almost wonder if someone said, stop, play how you want to play, Pete, that he would not go right back to the way he was. And everyone would hate it because he'd run the damn ball all the time and like all of those things. But that's who he is. And I think that he, in all of this, the muck has lost a little bit of who he is. And I just wish he would go back to the way he was before. And that has nothing to do with Russell. Russell's amazing. I just think that's Pete is trying to coach the way others want him to coach. And it's completely contrary to the way he actually is a good coach. Does that make sense? Am I saying that correctly?
I know what you're saying. I think I would love to see the team go back to being the way Pete Carroll says he wants to win, which is being super physical and great on defense. Because right now they're getting beat at the line of scrimmage on offense and defense. And the defense with this bend but don't break, and they give up all those third down conversions. And yeah, they're keeping teams out of the end zone, but the offense can't get back on the field because they're giving up this 8-minute drive, 10-minute drive. And go be good on defense.
I love it.
Yeah, and so I'm like, that's my thing. Is we know Pete's a defensive mind. He's orchestrated this team through some awesome years as a defense. So just because Russ and the offense is doing something different doesn't mean you can't go do what you do on defense and do it the way you used to.
Agreed, but I think to my prior point, you have to have a really strong offensive coordinator to pull that off. If the head coach is all about the defense, he's going to focus on defense, you have to have that strong offensive coordinator. He does not have that this year for sure. I didn't dislike Shoddy as much as a lot of other people did, but he just hasn't had that presence. And I think that's needed for that. Yeah.
I'll give you that. I mean, because if he takes a step back and really focuses in on the defense, then yeah, he's got to have someone run the offense because he's not going to be overseeing everything. And that could be a thing, because how much faith do you have in Waldron? You apparently don't have any. I still don't know if we should or not. But that doesn't mean I have a lot, right? Because it's like, we'll see. I mean, he's never been a play caller before. We knew there was going to be problems. We knew there was going to be inconsistencies, and he was going to have to learn on the job. Okay. So, but we need to see progress too. I think we kind of did in the San Francisco game. We'll see if it carries over. They're playing a bad team, and maybe this is where we transition to talking about playing Houston. But Houston's bad. They don't have
Right.
they don't have a lot of talent anywhere. They are just not a good football team. This offense needs to hum.
Yeah.
Seattle's does against this team. We should be seeing what they did in the second half, or really the second and third quarters of this 49ers game. We should be seeing that all game. And if we're not, I'll be concerned. So
Right. Here's my thoughts. I'm going to Houston for this game. I'm excited to be there for this game. There seems to be a lot of Seattle fans that are going to this game, probably because the tickets were under $100. So
yeah, tickets are cheap to get because nobody wants to go see the Texans. So and they're finding a lot of road fans in that stadium all year. So,
and it's a great stadium, and it's a great away game. The fans, actually, Texans fans, I've always really liked. But so what's interesting to me about this game is we don't think Tyrod Taylor's going to play. I don't know that they've officially said that, but Tyrod Taylor probably is not going to play. And why play him? They're the first team to be eliminated from the playoffs, and it's week 12, right? So, and so
not the Lions.
Technically, no.
Interesting. I find that interesting.
Is that crazy? Telling you. All NFC teams are within 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 games of playoffs. It's a whole different conversation, but yeah. So I think that'll be interesting to see, which is sad for me. I really wanted to see Tyrod Taylor play. I like Tyrod Taylor, but there's nothing cohesive about the Texans at all. There's nothing good about them. The defense should run over them. The offense should just play lights out. Here's my worry. Teams that have nothing to lose are the scariest teams to play. And they could just come up and, I don't know, just as inconsistent as Seattle's been. I'm telling you, who knows what's going to happen. But it should be a good game to get that rhythm, feel that rhythm, and have some of that carry over, to the next game. Because then the game after that is the Rams. So they're going to need some of that momentum.
Yeah. You were saying that and I was thinking, I'm like, do you remember the Tampa game in 2013, the Super Bowl year, when Tampa was terrible that year? And they came into Seattle and it was like 21-0 at halftime, and the Seahawks couldn't stop the run. And it was like, how is this team that looks amazing getting run over by this awful team? Now the Seahawks came back and won that game.
Overtime. It took overtime.
But it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. So do not speak that into existence. It's not going to happen again.
I'm telling you, it's a worry of mine.
I hear you.
We picked this game to go to because we thought it'd be a surefire win. No, not so sure. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and especially you're between the two division games and the Rams game. You look at the schedule, and if you think Arizona has everything wrapped up before they go into the final week and they rest all their starters and all that, that Rams game is the only game that you're really worried about. The rest of them, Seahawks should be favored in. And so you're looking at that and going, they could run the table. They could get to 9-8, maybe sneak in as the 7 seed. Okay, maybe. But you're looking ahead at that Rams game. You're not looking at the Texans because they're bad. You got to prep. You got to be there. You got to show up. Still an NFL team. I mean, look what happened to Minnesota this last week. They got beat by the Lions. The Lions are awful.
Yeah.
So
I will say this about the Lions, though. They always hang in there. For the most part, a lot of those games, they're right there. They just can't win because it comes down when you're going to close games. It's usually quarterback play that makes a difference, and you got Jared Goff. So they've also got a lot of draft picks, so hopefully they can turn that around. I think they're pretty well coached, and that's one of the things you see when you've got a team that's really lacking in talent, but yet they're competitive week in, week out. They're losing all those games, but he hasn't lost the locker room. They continue to be competitive. That's a good coaching staff. It's a good coach.
Yep.
That is good staff. It is good.
So
yeah, I worry about the Texans, although I do like the mindset that the locker room has right now of we need to win every game.
Yeah. Every game's a playoff game.
And so I think that they're not going to lose that focus just because it's Houston. Now, if they were, let's say, 6 wins, they might overlook this team, but I don't think they will where they're sitting.
Yeah. I just look at the game. It just the X's and O's of it, the rosters of it. I can't see Seattle losing this, especially now that Russ had a good game, because he was pretty bad those first 3 weeks.
He was injured.
I mean, he was. And then one of the things that you notice when you're, it's you can't see it in the stadium, but when you're watching like the replays and that kind of stuff, especially when they get the weirder camera angle, so you can kind of see his face. He's not looking downfield. He's looking at the pass rush because he knows he's gonna get hit. And if you're not looking downfield, you're not seeing the guys as they come open. And I really think that was part of it. He just was not. He wasn't feeling it. He was not ready to come back. And I think
he was seeing ghosts for sure.
Yep. I think he came back too early. But at the same time, they weren't beaten either of those teams, Arizona or Green Bay, with Geno under the helm.
No, not
it didn't really matter. It's really just the Washington game is a loss that I felt that he should have played better. The team should have been better. They should have been able to do something. They didn't, and they deserved to lose that game. But it was.
But now look at Washington, really, 4 in a row. They're like killing it. I'm telling you, this conference is crazy.
The NFC is weird. Well, the AFC is also the AFC is also weird, and we will talk about that, you and I, in a bit. But let's go ahead and wrap up this show. And those of you that are listening, don't forget to come into the Pro Football Playbook show, or the whole NFL show. Dana's going to come back with me on that side of things, and we're going to talk about the absolutely insane AFC West, because there's no idea what's going on there and who's going to come out of that. So Dana's kind of the expert on the AFC West, since that's what she covers for Archer football, and she's going to help me figure it out because I got nothing. So so for the people listening to this show, go ahead and plug all the stuff that you've got going on.
Oh man, I do.
You gotta. That's why I said I'm not going to try and do it. Right. I'm just going to let you plug it because you've got everything.
On a podcast. Yeah, if you want to see me on a podcast, I'm everywhere this season for some reason. So Archer Football has a podcast every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central. We go live on YouTube, and it's an interactive podcast. So as our people in our chat talk with us, we post their stuff on our screen, and we talk back with them. We answer the questions live. We have a great time. We have great guests. So we have a great time over there. ArcherFB.com is our website. And then I also am on Real Hawk Talk with Hawk Blogger and Evan and all the people that people love to hate. I do that on Wednesday nights with them. And then I do a podcast every other week with the girls, a couple of people from NFL UK. And we focus on that's called End Zone Scoop. And we talk about the entire NFL, but they give a fantastic view from the other side of the pond, which is really kind of fun. And I have a great time with that one too. So yeah, and you can always find me on Twitter. It's at Dayna OG. So come chat with me.
Yeah, definitely. She's a great follow. You should all do that. So anyways, thanks for listening, everyone. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Myers NFL. Bill is at NW Seahawk. He will be back. He thinks he'll be back next week. I guess it's the week after that, but we'll see. The show is at Hawks Playbook. The website is SeahawksPlaybook.com. You can find us everywhere, YouTube, everywhere. Be sure to subscribe. So until next time, go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.